If you've ever felt that your greatest strength, your ability to feel deeply, has been weaponized against you, if you've walked away from a situation not with a cry of pain, but with a quiet, burning resolve, then you already understand what we're about to discuss. This isn't a video about healing a wound. It's about a metamorphosis. It's about the alchemical process where betrayal is not just endured, but actively weaponized. Welcome to the Sigma male community, where we don't just talk about becoming stronger, we forge it in the crucible of experience. The world tells the empath that their soft heart is a liability. It's a lie. It is, in fact, the raw material for something unbreakable. This is the story of how the fed-up empath, guided by the profound psychological insights of Carl Jung, becomes a more formidable force than the narcissist ever imagined. This isn't about revenge, it's about a complete psychological upgrade. 1. The Crucible of Betrayal. Jung's individuation as a brutal, accelerated initiation. Betrayal is more than just a momentary pain. For the empath, it is a psychological catalyst of immense power, acting as a brutal, accelerated initiation into Carl Jung's concept of individuation. Carl Jung saw individuation as the lifelong process of becoming a fully integrated whole individual, a journey of confronting the unconscious and bringing its contents into the light of consciousness. While most people navigate this process over decades, perhaps through introspection, therapy, or gradual life experience, the empath who endures repeated manipulation is thrust into an accelerated, high-stakes version of this journey. The psychological pressure of constant deceit, gaslighting, and emotional exploitation forces them to confront their deepest psychological shadows and vulnerabilities immediately. There is no time for gradual self-discovery. They are forced to either break under the pressure or, more profoundly, to break through it. This intense pressure cooker environment serves as a forge where the soft, malleable core of the empath is hammered and heated into something with an unyielding resilience. This baptism by fire is not about being destroyed, but about being fundamentally tempered. It compresses a lifetime of psychological integration into a searing moment of crisis. The empath is forced to examine why they allowed such things to happen, to understand their own role in the dynamic, and to confront the parts of themselves that sought external validation at the expense of their inner peace. They are not merely surviving the storm. They are learning to understand its mechanics, to harness its raw energy, and to redirect its power. The pain of betrayal becomes the fuel for an intense period of self-reflection and psychological reconstruction. Through this process, they don't just develop resilience, they develop a core of steel that is not brittle, but flexible and powerful, capable of withstanding future shocks with an inner calm that most people never achieve. The result is a person who has done the deep, difficult work of integration in a fraction of the time, emerging with a psychological robustness that makes them utterly formidable. 2. Shadow integration, the unlocked arsenal of the self. Carl Jung's concept of the shadow is not merely a repository of evil or negative traits, but a vast, suppressed archive of all the parts of ourselves we have disowned. For the empath, who is often conditioned to be gentle, accommodating, and self-sacrificing, their shadow is a trove of latent power. It contains the capacity for ironclad boundaries, for ruthless discernment, and for the primal, unyielding power of the final no. This shadow is often locked away, buried under layers of ingrained compassion and a fear of being perceived as unkind. Betrayal, however, acts as a forced key, prying open this vault. The repeated violation of their trust and emotional well-being forces the empath to realize that their survival depends on accessing these suppressed parts of their psyche. They must learn to say no without guilt, to prioritize their own needs, and to sever connections that are toxic. The process of integrating the shadow is not about becoming a villain. It is about reclaiming one's full psychological arsenal. It means acknowledging and accepting that the capacity for assertiveness, self-preservation, and even righteous anger is a necessary component of a complete self. The gentle hand, once offered without condition, now knows exactly when and how to become an immovable wall. This integration means no longer fearing one's own power, but learning to wield it consciously and responsibly. The empath realizes that true compassion is not boundless and self-destructive. It is a discerning act that begins with compassion for oneself. They reclaim the warrior instincts buried under decades of being a peacemaker, understanding that to protect their own inner light, they must be willing to defend it. This psychological wholeness, where both light and shadow are acknowledged and integrated, creates a far more dangerous individual than someone who is simply nice. They are no longer a target. They are a force to be reckoned with. Third pattern: recognition, the empath's combat intelligence. What is often dismissed by others as oversensitivity or emotional fragility is, in fact, an advanced form of human behavioral analytics, the empath's unique combat intelligence. Empaths possess a heightened ability to perceive and absorb the emotional states of others, but this capacity goes far beyond simple feeling. They unconsciously dissect micro-expressions, vocal shifts, and behavioral inconsistencies, building vast internal databases of motive and manipulation. This is not a conscious, logical process at first. It is an intuitive, felt sense of a person's inner landscape. However, after repeated exposure to the inconsistencies of manipulators, this intuitive data begins to coalesce into a powerful, strategic intelligence. Every lie, every broken promise, every subtle dig is not merely felt as a wound. It is meticulously cataloged as tactical data. They begin to see the patterns, the predictable cycles of charm and cruelty, the subtle contradictions between what a person says and what they truly mean. This is not paranoia. It is hypervigilance honed into strategic insight. The repeated experience of betrayal transforms their empathic radar from a passive receiver into an active, high-resolution diagnostic tool. They learn to recognize the subtle cues that precede a manipulation, the shifts in energy that signal an insincere motive, and the verbal gymnastics of gaslighting. Their internal database, built from a history of painful lessons, becomes their unshakable intel. They stop seeing people's words at face value and instead learn to read the subconscious motives behind them. This gives them an almost preternatural ability to identify red flags and predict harmful behavior before it fully manifests. In a world where most people are easily swayed by appearances, the awakened empath possesses a unique form of wisdom, the kind that can only be earned through fire. Their feeling function, once a vulnerability, becomes a sophisticated radar, making them impervious to the very tricks that once ensnared them. 4. Enantiodromia. The extreme reversal as a catalyst for resolve. Carl Jung's principle of enantiodromia describes the inevitable phenomenon where a psychological attitude pushed to its extreme eventually flips into its opposite. For the endlessly patient and giving empath, this is the psychological mechanism that explains their transformation. pushed to the absolute limit of their capacity for patience, accommodation, and self-sacrifice, a dramatic reversal occurs. The unending patience does not simply wane, it calcifies into an unyielding, unbreakable resolve. The boundless generosity does not just diminish, it becomes a fiercely selective investment of energy. This is a profound and fundamental shift in their psychological makeup, a transmutation under immense pressure. It is not a sudden, erratic change, but the logical and inevitable outcome of a system that has been pushed past its breaking point. The empath, who once bent backward to avoid conflict, now stands rigidly, completely unwilling to compromise their integrity or peace for anyone. This is not a loss of virtue, but a powerful transmutation. The giving heart does not die. It becomes a discerning investor, pouring its light, time, and emotional energy only where there is genuine reciprocity and respect. The empath realizes that their own reserves are finite, and that to constantly pour from an empty cup is a form of self-betrayal. Carl Jung's observation teaches us that this reversal is a natural and necessary balancing act of the psyche. The one-sidedness of being a perpetually accommodating empath has created an enormous buildup of potential energy in the opposite direction. The moment the switch is flipped, this stored energy is unleashed as a force of decisive action and unshakable boundaries. The empath no longer seeks to please or accommodate. They seek to protect their own psychological and emotional integrity. This reversal is a core component of their dangerous nature, as their newfound resolve is not born of a momentary anger, but of a fundamental, irreversible shift in their perception of self-worth and purpose. 5. Psychological sovereignty. The apex of detachment. The ultimate destination of the awakened empath is not hatred or coldness, but a state of profound psychological sovereignty rooted in an understanding of human nature. This is a state of detachment born not of fear, but of absolute clarity. The awakened empath, through the forced crucible of betrayal, develops the ability to see the manipulator's game board with crystal clarity. They see the predictable moves, the gaslighting tactics, and the emotional leverage points for what they are: pathetic attempts to control a person. They don't withdraw in a state of fear or woundedness. They step back because they see the game, and seeing it, they refuse to play. This is the ultimate expression of power and control. They have conquered the internal need to react, to explain, or to seek validation from the very person who would harm them. This detachment is power incarnate. It renders the narcissist's tricks and manipulations utterly pathetic, like watching a child try to cheat at a game of chess against a grandmaster who simply refuses to engage. The empath's silence is not confusion, it is dismissal. Their lack of reaction is not numbness. It is a conscious refusal to feed the chaotic drama. Carl Jung would have seen this as a key stage of individuation, where the individual becomes a complete, self-governing entity. A person who is no longer defined by their external relationships or the opinions of others. They are no longer a player in someone else's drama. They are the sovereign of their own reality. This is the ultimate defeat for a manipulator. The moment their intended victim ceases to be a victim and becomes an unassailable fortress of self-awareness. 6. Conscious choice. Over wounded reaction. While most people lash out from a place of raw hurt and emotional turmoil, the forged empath operates from a place of calibrated, conscious response. The battle is no longer an external fight against the betrayer. It is a decisive victory won within. They have done the hard psychological work of understanding their own triggers, their own vulnerabilities, and their own need for validation. By confronting these inner demons, they disarm the manipulator's most potent weapons. The energy that others would expend in seeking revenge or demanding an apology is instead channeled into building an unassailable internal fortress. This shift is a profound expression of self-mastery, a core tenet of both Stoic and Jungian thought. The idea that our power lies not in controlling external events, but in controlling our internal response to them. Victory, for the awakened empath, is transcending the need to stoop to the level of their aggressor. Why waste energy trying to destroy a gnat when you have built a fortified citadel that the gnat cannot even reach? Their peace becomes the ultimate form of defeat for the narcissist, who thrives on chaos and reactive emotion. The empath's calm, measured response, or complete lack thereof, is far more devastating than any angry outburst. It communicates a silent, unshakable truth. You have no power over me. This is a profoundly psychological win. They are not acting out of a position of weakness, but from a position of immense strength. The strength of a person who has conquered their own internal chaos and now moves with a quiet, certain power that no external force can destabilize. 7. The Transcendent Function. The empath's emotional containment. Superpower. Carl Jung's Transcendent Function is a core concept that describes the ability to hold the tension between opposing forces within the psyche without shattering. For the empath who has been betrayed, this becomes a superpower. They are forced to hold the unbearable tension between deep, innate love and the profound pain of betrayal, between intense feeling and the razor-sharp logic needed for self-preservation. This is not numbness or suppression. It is a supreme act of emotional containment. They feel the chaos, the hurt, the rage, and the grief with a depth that would incapacitate others, yet they do not allow these emotions to dictate their actions. Instead, they hold this immense internal pressure, shape it, and channel it not into destruction, but into unbreakable clarity and decisive action. This function, forged in the crucible of betrayal, becomes the psychic equivalent of adamantium. The empath learns to feel everything, but to be controlled by nothing. They become an emotional alchemist, capable of transmuting the raw, chaotic energy of their pain into a focused, powerful force. They learn to separate their feelings from their actions, to process their emotional reality without being consumed by it. This is the ultimate expression of self-mastery. The narcissist, who relies on the emotional reactivity of others, finds this impenetrable. They try to inject chaos, only to discover that the empath has become a black hole of stability, absorbing their energy and rendering it inert. The transcendent function allows the empath to use their emotional depth as a source of strength, not a point of vulnerability, and in doing so, they become a psychological force of nature. 8. Mirroring to revelation. A strategic shift in power. Initially, the unawakened empath's natural mirroring ability can make them susceptible to a manipulator's projections. They tend to absorb and reflect the emotional states of others, often leading them to take on the manipulator's shame, guilt, or anger. However, the awakened empath undergoes a fundamental shift. Passive reflection becomes active revelation. They stop absorbing the toxicity and, with their newfound psychological clarity, begin to reflect back an unvarnished, objective truth. They hold up a mirror to the manipulator's own dysfunction, not as an accusation, but as a simple, undeniable fact. This is an incredibly powerful and devastating tactic. They no longer try to understand or justify the manipulator's behavior. They simply illuminate it. Truth, delivered with calm precision, is a kryptonite bomb to deception. The manipulator thrives in the shadows of confusion and gaslighting. When the empath holds up a clear, unwavering mirror, their own ugliness, their own hypocrisy, and their own brokenness is reflected back at them with nowhere to hide. The empath doesn't need to engage in a verbal battle. Their simple, clear observation of reality is enough to dismantle the manipulator's narrative. This is the ultimate reversal of power. The empath, once a passive receptor, becomes an active agent of truth. Their unwavering gaze and quiet certainty become a prison for the manipulator, who is now forced to confront their own distorted reality, a confrontation they have spent their entire lives trying to avoid. 9. The return of the repressed. Clarity erupts as decisive action. Carl Jung's psychological framework posits that repressed energies do not simply vanish. They build up until they find an outlet. For the accommodating empath who has suppressed their own needs, their own boundaries, and their own voice, betrayal acts as the pressure release. This suppressed power doesn't explode in a random fit of rage. It erupts as laser-focused surgical clarity. The old, accommodating empath vanishes, replaced by a person capable of decisive action without apology, boundaries stated without negotiation, and the severing of ties without explanation. This is not drama, it is psychological surgery. The empath has identified the tumor, the toxic relationship, and they cut it out cleanly. There is no debate, no justification, no plea for understanding. The action itself is the statement. This level of clarity is born from a profound internal shift in priorities. The awakened empath has realized that their peace, their well-being, and their integrity are non-negotiable. They are no longer willing to sacrifice these core aspects of their self for the sake of another person's comfort or validation. This is a direct consequence of the individuation process, the realization that their own psychological wholeness is their most sacred responsibility. The narcissist, who is used to a back and forth of negotiation and emotional manipulation, is left completely powerless in the face of this unilateral, decisive action. The empath's newfound clarity is their most formidable weapon, and it leaves no room for the old games to be played. 10th. Discernment, the sacred allocation of empathy. Integrated shadow work transforms empathy from a leaky faucet into a strategic resource. The unawakened empath often allows their compassion to flow freely and without condition, believing it to be a limitless wellspring. This makes them a prime target for those who would drain them dry. However, the journey of betrayal teaches them a crucial lesson. Their compassion, their energy, their empathy is not a weakness, but a sacred currency. They become a ruthless investor, allocating it only where there is tangible respect, genuine reciprocity, and a mutual commitment to integrity. This is empathy with teeth. It is a powerful, discerning tool. The awakened empath understands the immense value of their light and fiercely protects it. They are no longer a safe haven for black holes. The foolish, the manipulative, and the ungrateful are simply cut off. The worthy, those who demonstrate equal value and integrity, are the only ones who earn the privilege of their depth. Carl Jung would see this as a healthy integration of the feeling and thinking functions, where a person's deep emotional capacity is guided by rational discernment and self-preservation. It is a state of being that is neither cold nor naive, but wise and powerful. This newfound discernment is a direct byproduct of their suffering, a hard-won wisdom that transforms them from a victim to a sovereign master of their own energy. 11th, wounds into weaponized wisdom. Experience is not just knowledge. For the empath, it is hardened discernment. They don't just recognize manipulation, they feel its blueprint in their bones. Their past pain has become a sophisticated and lethal detection system. The concept of gaslighting is not an abstract psychological term to them. It is a lived experience that they have mapped and understood down to its very circuitry. Emotional vampires are no longer a vague concept. They sense their drain before they even bite. Their history of being preyed upon has made them the ultimate predator of psychological manipulation. This isn't cynicism. It is combat-tested perception. The wounds of the past are not flaws. They are badges of honor and the foundation of their future armor. The pain they endured has refined their perception, making them hyper-aware of the subtle cues of deception that most people miss entirely. Their memory is no longer a source of trauma, but a vast, searchable database of red flags and manipulative tactics. This weaponized wisdom ensures they will not be fooled again. It allows them to navigate the world with a quiet confidence and a preternatural ability to protect their own peace. Their past suffering becomes their greatest strength, a lethal combination of empathy and unyielding discernment that makes them unapproachable to those who operate in the shadows. The Sigma shift, where you stand now. Let's cut the abstract. If you're here, listening to this, it's because you sense this profound shift within yourself, or see the absolute necessity of it. You're not chasing validation or seeking to fit in. You're building an inner citadel, a fortress of psychological sovereignty. Sigma isn't just about isolation, it's about chosen sovereignty, about the conscious decision to live a life of integrity and purpose, unburdened by the need for external approval. This next phase of the empath's journey, the journey from victim to sovereign, is where they stop surviving and start commanding their reality. It's a call to action. Forget trying to fit in. You are now engineering your own unbreakable core, your own sense of self that is an impenetrable fortress. 12th, psychological autonomy. Immunity achieved, Carl Jung's concept of psychological autonomy, is the ultimate shield for the empath. Manipulators rely on predictable reactions, chasing, explaining, fighting for scraps of validation. The psychologically autonomous empath, however, becomes completely untouchable. They simply refuse the script. They do not get drawn into the drama, the blame-shifting, or the endless cycles of gaslighting. Their internal compass is so strong that the manipulator's attempts to steer them off course are completely ineffective. This immunity isn't aloofness, it's a strategic invulnerability. The empath has done the hard work of detaching their sense of self-worth from the opinions and actions of others. They see the puppet strings, and as a result, they refuse to dance. The silence of the autonomous empath is not confusion. It is a powerful form of dismissal. It communicates a truth that the manipulator cannot comprehend. Your opinion of me is irrelevant. Your attempts to control me are noted, and they are dismissed. This is the ultimate expression of self-mastery. They have won the internal battle for their own sanity and their own peace, and in doing so, they have made themselves invulnerable to external attacks. This is the Sigma stance in its purest form, not as a lifestyle choice, but as a hard-won psychological state of complete self-sufficiency. 13. Feeling dominance. The strategic advantage. Carl Jung identified feeling function dominance in empaths And while this can be a source of instability if not integrated, when it is, it becomes high-definition emotional intelligence. The awakened empath, having integrated their shadow and understood their own psychological landscape, combines this deep feeling with earned wisdom. This shifts them from a reactive victim to a strategic operator. They no longer feel the battlefield and get overwhelmed. They feel the battlefield and command it. They use their emotional intelligence as a sophisticated radar and a tactical planning tool. This is a move from a pain-driven existence to a power-anchored one. Their emotions are no longer a weakness to be exploited, but their most sophisticated tool for understanding and navigating complex human dynamics. They can sense a person's true intentions, not just their words. They can read a room and understand the undercurrents of power and deceit. This emotional clarity, when combined with a stoic-like self-control, makes them an incredibly effective and formidable individual. They are able to see the full picture, both the emotional and the rational, and act accordingly. This is the Sigma male's superpower, not brute force or aggression, but a calm, strategic mastery born of a deep understanding of the human psyche. 14. The individuated self. Wholeness as power. Carl Jung's concept of individuation is the ultimate goal of the psyche, the state of profound internal wholeness. The awakened empath, having walked through the crucible of betrayal and integrated their shadow, reaches this state of completion. The need for external validation, which once made them vulnerable, is gone. The habit of apologizing for their own needs is dead. The compulsion to explain their boundaries is now seen as an unnecessary waste of energy. They become a self-contained source of power, a nation unto themselves. This is psychological self-sufficiency. The individuated empath is their own nation, their own judge, and their own source of worth. They engage with the world from a place of abundance, not lack. Their relationships are no longer based on a need to fill a void, but on a conscious choice to connect with other whole individuals. This is a profound and unshakable form of power. The narcissist's greatest weapon is the ability to exploit another's lack, but the individuated empath has no lack for them to exploit. They are a completed system, and as a result, they are completely unassailable. 15. Appropriate response. The master key. The transformed empath masters the art of calibrated force, a concept that is at the heart of both psychological maturity and stoic wisdom. They are gentle with the deserving, but uncompromisingly firm with transgressors. This is appropriate response, the ability to feel deeply, to understand the emotional landscape, but to act with surgical precision. They are not ruled by a single monolithic emotion. They are not cold, and they are not blindly warm. They are wise. This is emotional jujitsu. They use the energy directed at them, whether it is love or malice, and redirect it with perfect, controlled force. Their compassion, which once made them vulnerable, now has a steel core. It is not indiscriminate, but is applied with a deep understanding of what is necessary and what is deserved. They do not lash out in anger. They act with the quiet, devastating force of someone who has thought through every possible consequence. Their actions are not reactive, but are a precise and measured response to the situation at hand, making them incredibly effective and unpredictable to those who would seek to control them. 16. Conscious relationship. The new standard engagement is no longer the default for the individuated empath. It is now a highly selective contract. They practice what Carl Jung would call the art of conscious relationship, engaging only with those who demonstrate mutual respect, tangible reciprocity, and genuine care. They stop rescuing the self-destructive and chasing the emotionally unavailable. They understand that their energy is a precious resource, and that to squander it on those who do not value it is a form of self-betrayal. This is alliance, not charity. The empath's energy is a privilege earned only by those who demonstrate equal value and integrity. They have learned that engaging with black holes of negativity and neediness only serves to drain their own light. Their new standard is one of mutual respect and genuine connection. This shift is not about becoming cold or uncaring. It's about becoming a wise and powerful gatekeeper of their own heart and energy. It is a fundamental declaration of self-worth and a powerful testament to their journey from victim to sovereign. 17. The force of nature. Integration unleashed. Carl Jung saw the integrated individual as a force of nature, a person who is so internally whole and aligned that they move through the world with an unstoppable certainty. The individuated empath embodies this. They transcend the need for revenge because they have already won the inner war. They are not defined by their pain or their past. They are defined by their unshakable wholeness. They fear no solitude. They command it, understanding it as a source of immense power and clarity. This is quiet, undeniable power. They don't need to roar or make a scene. Their presence itself resonates with a frequency of unshakable stability that disintegrates manipulation on contact. Their actions are not impulsive, but are the inevitable result of a deep, internal wisdom. They are like a mountain, unmoving, solid, and utterly magnificent. The narcissist, who operates in a world of constant chaos and instability, finds this kind of presence terrifying. They cannot be shaken, they cannot be moved, and they cannot be controlled. This is the true power that is forged in empathy and tempered in betrayal. 18. The narcissist's true terror. The awakened empath is a narcissist's worst nightmare, precisely because they cannot be controlled, manipulated, or broken. The narcissist thrives on emotional reactions and external validation. The awakened empath, through their process of individuation, becomes a complete, integrated, and self-aware individual. They are not hard, but they are unyielding. Their self-love and their self-trust are an impenetrable fortress that no external force can penetrate. Your greatest weapon is your unassailable inner peace. The chaos and drama that the narcissist uses as their currency simply wash over you, leaving you completely untouched. Your stability is their kryptonite. They have no lever to pull, no button to push, no wound to exploit. You have healed and integrated those parts of yourself, and in doing so, you have made yourself completely immune to their tactics. This is the quiet, devastating victory that no one can ever take from you. 19. The hero's journey. The psyche's ascent. The empath's path from victim to sovereign is a perfect illustration of Carl Jung's hero's journey of the psyche. This is a mythical and archetypal journey that every individual must undertake to become whole. The empath's descent into the shadow world of betrayal and manipulation is their call to adventure. The confrontation with their own pain, their own fears, and their own repressed power is their battle, and their return, transformed and whole, is their apotheosis. This isn't just a story of recovery. It's a profound spiritual and psychological ascent. They don't crawl back from the underworld of pain and despair. They rise, transformed, carrying the fire of hard-won wisdom to light their own path and to guide others. They are the hero of their own story, a person who has faced their demons, integrated their darkness, and emerged with a power that is authentic, earned, and unshakable. 20. Suffering, alchemized, the beacon of hard-won wisdom. Carl Jung knew that suffering, when consciously processed and integrated, is the raw ore of wisdom. The empath who has walked through the fire of betrayal doesn't just heal, they become a beacon. Their experience becomes a living map for others who are lost in the darkness of manipulation and pain. Their scars are not flaws. They are badges of transformation, proof that they transmuted poison into potency. Their light, once naive and easily exploited, is now forged in darkness. It is a powerful, unshakable light that shines with the clarity and wisdom that can only be earned through immense struggle. They are a testament to the power of the human spirit, to not just endure, but to thrive in the face of adversity. This is the ultimate gift of the journey, the ability to turn one's deepest wounds into a source of immense power and wisdom. 21. The seed of transcendence, the catalyst for radical authenticity. Within every wound, Carl Jung saw the seed of transcendence. Betrayal, instead of destroying the empath, becomes the brutal catalyst for radical authenticity and power. It is the universe's harsh but necessary invitation to shed the false self, the accommodating self, and to claim their true sovereignty. The deepest cuts do not just wound. They create the widest openings for light to enter and for authentic power to emerge. What was meant to shatter them becomes the chisel that sculpts their most powerful, authentic, and magnificent self. 22. The individuated empath, the ultimate Sigma stance. This is the pinnacle, the individuated empath. They are not cold, not cruel, but unfathomably complete. They love fiercely but selectively. They understand profoundly but engage cautiously. They forgive fully, but they never ever forget the lessons of their pain. Their empathy, once a vulnerability, is now their most discerning and powerful tool. It is empathy with a steel core, guided by a mind that has seen the darkness and has chosen the light of self-mastery. This is Sigma evolved. It is the synthesis of deep feeling with an unbreakable will, of profound understanding shielded by impenetrable boundaries. You stand alone, not because you fear connection, but because you are the complete system. You are the calm eye of the storm, the unshakable core in a world of chaos. This is true power, forged in empathy, tempered in betrayal, and utterly, magnificently sovereign. The journey from a vulnerable empath to a sovereign, individuated force is not an easy one. It is a path of fire, a path of deep self-work, and a path that requires you to confront the very parts of yourself you've always hidden. But it is a journey that will transform you into something unbreakable. The world will always have its manipulators, its deceivers, and its emotional vampires. But now you have the map, you have the tools, you have the understanding to not just survive them, but to transcend them. This is the purpose of the Sigma male community, to provide the practical guidance and the wisdom that will empower you to build your inner citadel. Do not let your past define you. Let it be the forge that tempers you. Take these lessons, reflect on them, and apply them. We are here to guide you on this path to personal development and stoic living, a path of independence and excellence. If this message resonated with you, if it sparked a flicker of recognition in your soul, then this is your community. Subscribe to the Sigma Male community and let's continue to build something powerful and unbreakable together. The next chapter of your journey begins now.